host of The Breakfast Club, Charlamagne Tha God, Thursday gave a thumbs up to one of President Trump's executive orders. Let's watch.
Not gonna get any complaints on me about that. I can't even believe that had to be signed, because it have never been a thing. I totally agree with that one, but I'm not gonna let that distract me from the fact that Elon Musk literally controls how the federal government pays people. Let's stay focused.
Yeah, I would say that too. I just, I always go back to that one swimmer that, as a man, the swimmer was like in 400th place, and then when she trans to a woman, was in first place, and how how sad all those parents were because their daughters were training and felt like they were cheated.
And here's President Trump right before signing the order in question. Let's watch.
We will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. Invade your locker rooms. You will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding.
The National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA, on Thursday changed its policy, only allowing athletes assigned female at birth to play in their sports. NCAA President Charlie Baker said in a statement, "We strongly believe that clear, consistent, and uniform eligibility standards would best serve today's student athletes instead of a patchwork of conflicting state laws and court decisions."
The NCAA has some 1,100 member schools with more than 500,000 athletes across the United States. I think Charlie Baker has previously said he's only aware of 10 people who identify as transgender among that vast bulk of people. But, as you know, I do not subscribe to the most pro-trans elements of this issue. I think that the people who do support that, particularly within the Democratic Party, have got themselves on the wrong side of the issue, not just in terms of the popularity of the proposal of allowing trans people to play in women's and girls' sports, but on the topic of basic fairness. And it came up in the Charlamagne discussion there, where there was the talk about how do parents feel, in particular, if they have a daughter competing. We all understand, you and I both played and still play sports. We know that at whatever level you're at, there's a lot of time devoted to it, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of dedication devoted to that. And for the parents of girls, it has to be pretty galling to see them outperformed, in inverted commas, by someone who has been born male.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, putting all of this time into my craft and angling for a scholarship or trying to win a state championship and potentially being boxed out by someone who has a biological advantage that is essentially insurmountable. It is a question of basic fairness. And then there's the question of safety. There was a young woman who was playing high school volleyball in the Northeast, and she got hit with a spike from a male player and now has permanent brain damage from the traumatic brain injury she sustained from that event. So, I mean, it's really sad, and I think no matter how many people it is, whether it's a small amount or a large amount, that doesn't excuse an injustice from taking place. One of the other big issues involved in this has been the locker room and bathroom questions. There's a story this week that came out that in an Arlington public school in Virginia at Washington and Liberty High School, they have a pool that is sometimes accessible to the public for swimming laps, things of that nature. And there was a registered sex offender who was a man who identified as a woman who was able to access the girls' locker room and apparently exposed himself to the young women there. And amazingly, there were actually parents of Arlington, in the Arlington public school system, who defended the district's transgender policy and said that this had nothing to do with the guy being trans. But it obviously did, because that's how he was able to access the women's locker room in the first place. So it is very disturbing. I think, to your point about the basic facts of the matter, the Democrats are wrong. They're very wrong on the optics as well. I mean, to give Trump this video of himself surrounded by girls of all ages in their sports uniforms, cheering him on as he grants them protections for basic fairness, I just don't know how you get that issue so wrong.
Yeah, I think that perhaps to answer both those points in one, in a sense, whenever you referred to the incident in Arlington, and I've had concerns for a long time about issues like, shelters for women who have suffered domestic abuse, and
Yeah,
whether
or
someone,
prisons.
or prisons where someone can get into those having male genitalia but claiming to be a woman or identifying as a woman. It just seems to me that people who advocate for the rules that permit that are just overlooking the basic fact of human experience that people with malevolent intent will use rules to their own advantage if they can. And so I think it gets confused because we were briefly discussing earlier the fact that I do think transgenderism is a thing. I do think that people do feel that they inhabit the wrong biological body. I have compassion for those people. But the question is how you uphold the dignity of those people in a way that does not endanger other people. Obviously, if someone with male genitalia is getting into women's private spaces and exposing that, then that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's this fundamental idea that in order to protect trans people, that left-wing activists believe you have to then marginalize women as a result and take away their dignity, their safe spaces, or their ability to be who they really are. And so you're basically upholding the quote-unquote rights of a few at the expense of the many. And that's where this issue to me has gotten so backwards, especially when you look at the term that's been used to describe feminists who take issue with this, TERFs,
right.
trans exclusionary radical feminists. I don't think it's really radical at all to say that women deserve their own private spaces just as men deserve their own private spaces.
Yeah, no, and I think all of that has been a problem. As to the politics of it, I was looking at a poll from Gallup earlier, which indicated that on the sport issue, the share of Americans who believe essentially in Trump's position, in other words, in the position that people should only be permitted to play sport according to their gender at birth, has actually increased slightly in the past couple of years. It's now about 70%. The people who say that you should be able to play on any team depending on how you identify is down somewhere in the 20-25% mark. So that to me speaks to the fact that a lot of people, regardless of many liberal people or people with a general liberal mindset, still have huge problems with that because of the issue of fairness that it raises.
Yeah, and I would also give a lot of credit to conservative activist groups around this issue who have done a stellar job on the messaging of this and holding up these women who have had opportunities taken away, whether it's Riley Gaines, Paula Scanlon, etc. Places like American Principles Project, the Riley Gaines Project, Independent Women's Forum have been really hammering this because it is such an obvious political win for them and really helps, I think, delineate the cultural issues down to something very, very basic. And they have really nailed this, I think, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing those numbers shift is a combination of awareness of the issue, but also maybe a greater understanding of the issue and really what the basic problems with it come down to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have mixed feelings on that topic because I sometimes think it is an issue that gets elevated disproportionately given the relative infrequency of where these disputes actually break out. But that doesn't get away from the fact that the popular opinion on this topic is very clear and does not appear to be shifting to the most progressive side.
Sure. All right, another area of agreement, and it's a good one to end on. That's going to do it for us today on Rising. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.